You're watching CBS 8 Mornings at 6.
All right, happy Friday, everyone. It's 6 o'clock here. I'm Chris Grow.
And I'm Evan Irani. Want to get a check on your forecast as this was a busy week weather-wise.
Yeah, it was.
Saw some showers out there pretty much every day of the work week, Monday through Thursday. And now we've made it to Friday and we have some changes in store. Those changes are going to come along with a lot more sunshine and warmth compared to what we saw this week. Clouds are not on hand this morning and temperatures are expected to warm from the 40s to the 50s to even the 60s by this afternoon, which we did not do for many days this week. So warmer territory, clearer skies out there expected. And right now, satellite radar is pretty much inactive. Just a few showers off the coastline, looking like a good start to our Friday.
All right, well, this just in, the U.S. economy added 228,000 jobs last month. That's according to new numbers from the Labor Department. It's up from 117,000 jobs added in February. The unemployment rate still went up slightly to 4.2%. This indicates the job market remains resilient even amid the president's trade war and shrinking of the federal workforce. Be interesting to see what the numbers are next month. And new this morning, China is imposing reciprocal 34% tariffs on all imports from the United States in retaliation to President Trump's sweeping new tariffs.
This all comes as a baseline tariff of 10% on all U.S. imports to the U.S. takes effect tomorrow. CBS 8's Regina Ureta is live downtown. She has more on what President Trump and Democrats are now saying. Good morning, Regina.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Well, we did know that China was strongly against these tariffs and said that it would respond with countermeasures, and that's what we're seeing through the form of retaliatory tariffs. Now, Asian markets continue to decline right around the same time the U.S. markets noticed its lowest day since COVID-19. But despite these factors, President Donald Trump remains optimistic after his sweeping new tariffs. Take a listen.
Going very well. It was an operation. Like when a patient gets operated on, and it's a big thing. I said this would exactly be the way it is.
And a 10% tariff on all U.S. imports is set to take effect this weekend. That's on top of reciprocal tariffs slated for next week to about 90 countries that the Trump administration says they're currently imposing unfair barriers on imported U.S. goods. This comes just a day after the administration imposed a 25% tariff on foreign-made cars, which has sparked backlash from trade partners. Now, the White House expects the tariffs will balance a trade deficit, but economists warn that across-the-board tariffs could impact lower-income Americans. On Capitol Hill, Democratic leaders criticize the president's trade policy.
Taking us into the dumbest and most avoidable recession probably in history.
Now, in the next half hour, you'll hear from economists who are still warning about long-lasting impacts with the recent new tariffs that President Donald Trump has announced. For now, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Regina, and on top of that, more than $2 trillion of the U.S. stock market's value were wiped out yesterday. So let's take a look at yesterday's closing numbers. Banks, retailers, clothing, airlines, technology companies, they were all amongst the hardest hit. As Regina mentioned, President Trump remains optimistic, saying he thinks the markets are going to boom and the tariffs will create new manufacturing jobs in the U.S. However, in a report, Fitch Ratings, head of the U.S. Economic Research, wrote that with the trade war, quote, many countries will likely end up in recession. We'll check in on the markets. They're going to open in about 27 minutes. We'll be able to let you know what they look like. Meantime, right now, a lot of Americans are watching their 401k savings take a hit. But investment strategists say the best advice right now is to stay calm and don't panic.
I think the biggest thing, what we talk to our clients a lot about is, just kind of, take a breath, right? This is the markets really just trying to sort through this new information and figure out how to move forward.
That's Linda Carroll. She's a certified financial planner, and she recommends a well-diversified investment portfolio, whether through 401ks, IRAs, or your individual investment accounts. While short-term volatility is unnerving, she suggests keeping a long-term perspective. But for those nearing retirement, it may be time to take a more conservative approach.
This morning, the nonpartisan Tax Foundation is reporting that President Trump's new tariffs will cost the average American household $2,100 more per year. Americans' average import tax will surge to 19% this year from 2.5% last year. That's the highest rate since 1933. Most economists say the first place the new tariffs will hit everyone's wallet is at the grocery store. Food is expected to go up in cost almost immediately.
Important thing about avocados and bananas and fresh produce is you can't store it very easily. And so there's no inventories to draw down.
Coffee, for example, or chocolate. We just don't have the climate for producing them here.
Economists say the tariffs will hurt those living paycheck to paycheck the most because even the slightest rise in prices will force them to make tough economic choices. Mexico is exempt from the new baseline 10% tariffs that begin tomorrow. Mexico's president had this to say about being spared in the latest round.
Well, it has to do with the good relationship we've built between the governments of Mexico and the United States, which is based on respect, with respect for sovereignty, collaboration, and coordination, but with respect for Mexicans and national sovereignty.
And while they are exempt from the 10% baseline tariff, Mexico is still subject to prior tariffs. And tomorrow's new tariffs are so far-reaching targets, including islands not inhabited by people, but by penguins. The territory of Heard Island and McDonald Islands is on the list of nations hit by the 10% baseline tariff. But for those that don't know, this is a sub-Antarctic Australian territory. Now, Russia was left off the list of countries affected, which led Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to say, quote, Donald Trump slapped tariffs on penguins and not on Putin. Today, local Representative Sarah Jacobs, along with other Democratic Congress members, visiting the San Diego border. This is to see the impacts of Trump administration's border policies firsthand. The visit will include tours of Homeland Security facilities near San Diego. They will also meet with Customs and Border Protection officials and talk to organizations working directly with migrants. In new this morning, UC San Diego is instituting a hiring pause campus-wide. Limited exceptions will be managed to ensure clinical needs are met and their health departments function smoothly. This as they report they have received 50 notices of research grant disruptions. They say with recent and proposed federal cuts, the university could lose somewhere between $75 to more than $500 million annually. The university's president says budget offices are now preparing for a 2.5 to a 12.5% in budget reduction. And this morning, San Diego firefighters are headed to Kentucky ahead of severe storms. They are part of a state task force specializing in search and rescue that also includes crews from Oakland and Orange County. This is video of flattened buildings, the debris, the destruction in Kentucky after yesterday, where storms ripped through the South and Midwest. 7 people have died. The region faces rain and flash flooding today. And as we switch gears here to our local forecast at 6:07 here on this Friday, and Evan, a lot of people may be holding out some of those outdoor plans that were scheduled for this weekend.
Yeah.
For this week, rescheduled for this weekend, right?
I think that's the best way of doing things. I mean, we talked about how Monday through Thursday there was that shot of showers pretty much every day. Some days more likely than others. But now as we head into the weekend, we're expecting a much drier stretch of weather, not only through the weekend, but likely through the entirety of next week. Take a look at where your conditions stand right now. We're at a pretty cold range out there to start off the morning. I will say that. The reason why, though, is because we have a lack of clouds out there. For the last many, many mornings, those clouds have helped to kind of hold in the warmth from the day prior. Instead, under clear skies, we've been allowed to cool down quite a bit. 42 degrees right now in Santee, 48 in Chula Vista, and 49 in downtown San Diego. When you look at the weekend beach forecast, it's beautiful. 67 on Saturday, mostly sunny skies carry out through Sunday. 71 degrees on Sunday afternoon, and it looks like both of those days we could have a few passing clouds, but generally they're going to be blue sky days. A lot of our forecast models hint at a lack of clouds too. So it is all that likely that those temperatures will just continue on the warming trend that will peak on Sunday in the low 70s, and then into early next week, it does seem like a lot of that warmth will carry on over. The question has been posed as to whether or not we'll see any remaining wet weather today. I would say there is a very, very slim chance that we see any along the coast or inland. But over the mountains, there's a couple sprinkles that have popped up on our radar maps, our future maps. This doesn't give us much cause for concern. Everything that we saw yesterday and really every day this week was much more widespread and robust than what we have in store for today. But we'll still be watching as those wind speeds die down, as a few showers carry on over the mountains primarily, and then along the coast, that chance for wet weather stays in the low single digits every day through the end of next week. Let's take a look at what's going on as far as traffic goes. I want to take you to one crash that has been causing some delays. So let's take a look at what we have out there. This is our map here, and we'll zoom in on where this crash took place, which is off toward La Mesa. It's on the 94. 3 lanes are blocked with a crash on the 94 westbound at exit 7. That's Massachusetts Avenue. You're looking live right now at the situation as our crews have arrived on scene. Our photographer Julio is there right now. What CHP has told us is that 2 vehicles were involved in a rollover crash. You see several fire trucks on scene as well. We've also been told that there were possibly multiple people trapped inside of the vehicle, which means that we have likely or will likely see people transported to a local hospital. We're going to keep tabs on this, but as I mentioned, you got multiple lanes blocked here, 3 lanes blocked on the 94 westbound, and all of that red there on the screen is showing that stop and go traffic that's leading up to about the Lemon Grove area. And again, this is right now at Massachusetts Avenue. That signal alert is issued, which means it could be several hours before we see those lanes reopened. Let's check in on your border wait times right now, where it's a 70-minute wait at the San Ysidro Port of Entry right now, about an hour 10 in total. You'll only get across the Otay Mesa Port of Entry about 10 minutes faster. It should take you about an hour in total.